Yes, beautiful sounds there by Taraji Band. We'll continue enjoying some of that music as we continue our show. But now let's take a look at the headlines this morning. And to help us do this, we have Cynthia Mutere, governance analyst, next to me. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're also very much privileged to have Peter Mathuki, the chief whip at the East African Legislative Assembly, which is based in Arusha, Tanzania.
Yeah.
He's also the Deputy Secretary General for WIPA. Yeah, that means he deputizes the one and only Senator Hassan Omar. He's also an aspirant for the Machakos governor seat, the same one that in the news that we've just had on Citizen TV. Yeah. Your party could be giving Mike Sonko a direct nomination for the same seat you're vying for, but we'll be discussing that in a short while. A quick look at the headlines this morning on the Daily Nation. NASA in confusion as party chiefs talks flop. WIPA was claimed to be in Dubai, while Ford Kenya leader flew to Mombasa, yes, while the ODM leader was said to be at home resting. Was there a meeting or not?
Sensational headline, of course.
Well,
from the media, claimed that is unfair to claim.
On the Standard, Raila speaks on Kalonzo. ODM leader dismisses claims of unease in NASA and fear factor against him in Central Rift. Of course, you know what they say about denying a rumor. Yeah. Once you deny a rumor, you give it credence. Also in Taifa Leo, and Taifa Leo, the headline spoke about Joto Tele NASA. Yeah. Vigogo lazimika kuamua wenyewe atakayegombea urais NASA baada ya kamati kushindwa. That means a committee that had been tasked with getting a flag bearer has been unable to do so. So clearly there's trouble in NASA, clearly, according to the headlines, because as I always say, what we do on this panel is look at the headlines. We do not create our own. So we're simply looking at what is there. So clearly, according to the headlines this morning, there's trouble in NASA. Let's start with that. Is there trouble in NASA?
Thank you very much for hosting us this morning. I would start by saying obviously no, a big no. There can't be trouble.
I didn't expect you to say yes either.
Because you must appreciate that NASA is a coalition of 4 major parties in this country. And therefore, when there is consultations, there is meetings of ensuring there is a common thinking on particular issues, most of the people think that there's a problem. Far from the truth. Obviously, we don't expect that our competitors would read it easy, would want it, would of course would want to read that there are problems. But I can tell you there's no problem. If there was a problem, obviously we would know. Even some of us who are inside the coalition would say yes, there's a problem. But I can assure you there's no problem at all. And if by not up to now saying who the candidate is or the flag bearer is the reason possibly why most of the people are reading that, I think there's still a lot of time. If you remember 2013, in fact 2 days before the elections, when the candidate of called then and of course JUBILEE were known. So this thing is a bit of time. Consultations of course are ongoing, and that is for a fact. And therefore when you read some of these sensational headlines that there's a problem, far from the truth. I can tell you for free.
Yeah, they may be sensational, yes, but the headlines have been very consistent this past week and even the last 1 week or so with regard to what is happening within NASA. It appears the technical committee has hit a snag in their job. They were given a job to assist in getting a flag bearer. Of course, some of the headlines suggested that they've ruled out that using party primaries like the US style. They've also yesterday hosted the CEO of the NASA Secretariat, Norman Magaya, and he says they've ruled out electoral college. So he says the only other way is consensus. Now the same headline on Taifa Leo seems to agree with him that vigogo walazimika kuamua wenyewe atakayegombea urais NASA baada ya kamati kushindwa. So it is the same thing. It is up to the 4 to come up with consensus. So the problem comes when we do understand that the 4 were to meet yesterday, but that meeting did not take place, and that's what the headlines are saying.
You're understanding this information from let me just say leaked information from a youth meeting. What was very clear is that the WIPA leader, after the Kitengela rally over the weekend, he did say he was going to Dubai. He did not claim. He is in Dubai. It is very clear that there is a legislative summit going on in Mombasa, and therefore the minority leader in the Senate, the Honorable Senator Moses Wetangula, is there to deliberate on issue and to interact. Of course, there's the debate of scrapping the Senate and all that. So it's important that he is in Mombasa to defend the constitutional provisions of what the Constitution has given us, even in our governance sector and in governing the country. So all these principles, it was very clear where they would be. And of course, Raila coming in from South Africa and coming in from, I think, the US. And so there was a youth summit where information is leaked that there is supposed to be the NASA principals meeting, and the media runs away with that information. There is absolutely no confusion. As regards the technical committee, they did come on with terms of reference. They have delivered on what they were supposed to do. There are clear guidelines on what they are supposed to do. Of course, they were supposed to give the principals an opportunity to discuss amongst themselves to see if they can come up with a consensus. If they don't, then the committee is going to come up with a formula of picking a candidate for themselves, and they need time.
The same committee that the headlines say
the headlines say has failed. Failed in what? Because these are the terms of reference.
In picking a flag bearer.
What are the timelines? By what time?
By what time? Disagreed.
They have not disagreed at all. It is up for debate. They have given the principals time to discuss amongst themselves and then get back to the committee, who will be coming up with a formula, and then this will be revealed to the nation.
Okay. Yesterday we do understand Kalonzo Musyoka claimed to be in Dubai.
Yes.
Moses Wetangula
claimed is an unfair word to say.
I'm just reading from the headline.
Yes.
Moses Wetangula was in Mombasa for the legislative forum. Raila Odinga was said to be at home resting because I'm sure he must have been tired after the flight from the US. And now that leaves Mudavadi, and he's quoted here saying he was a bit economical with details about the developments in Asas. He said the meeting would not take place due to engagements by key members of the coalition. So it is
and that is the correct information.
It is the engagements. So there was to be a meeting, but the engagements.
And there will
Dubai,
be a meeting.
Mombasa, home resting, these are the engagements that made the meeting not take place.
Let me tell you one thing, and I think that must be very clear, that one, it is true, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is out of the country, of course, for business. He's in Dubai, and of course expected back tomorrow evening. Tomorrow is Thursday. And it is true, it's a fact that the minority leader of the Senate, Honorable Wetangula, is in Mombasa, and that's for a fact. And obviously the Honorable Raila Odinga came in again yesterday, and obviously there's no way when they are not present they would have a meeting, and that is obvious. So I don't know why we should really read a lot of missive into all this. And number two, when you come to the technical committee that is doing the negotiation and so forth, I think you've said it correctly that the terms of reference for the committee was to develop a formula on how to pick a candidate. I think they've come up with a formula, and I think that's what my sister is saying. Indeed, they have not failed. They have done what they are supposed to do. And once they come up with a formula, then they're supposed to submit and discuss this report, give to the principals, and sort of...
So the job was to come up with a formula.
Then key among the things that the technical committee was to do was to come up with the structure of the whole coalition and to deliver those instruments to the register of political parties. That was done. And so they're taking on each assignment as it comes, one by one, ticking off. And if a meeting is rescheduled, it does not mean there's confusion. It's just that all the principals are not available at that time, and therefore it can be rescheduled.
And as you said, the main task was to come up with a formula. They seem to have agreed that the formula should be consensus.
No, what is happening is this. Before they finalize, they must discuss with the principals. And I think it's only fair that, again, the principals are briefed from some of those things. And I think that is what the committee has been expecting to do. And therefore, the meeting that they are claiming, of course, the media is claiming to have taken place yesterday, of course, hoped possibly to brief the principals on some of these things. And therefore, that's not a big deal, meaning that, of course, the committee possibly they've come up with a formula or proposals. They'll present to the principals and possibly agree. So it's not a crisis meeting that ought to have taken place, and therefore it has not taken place, and far from the truth.
Well, we'll stick to the headlines, and as the headlines do suggest, there seems to be some smoke, and you know what they say about smoke.
Yes.
It could be hiding some flames behind
it. It is democracy at work.
Yes.
Well, Well, Cynthia. Anyway, now that we've discussed some NASA, let's cross over and talk about Jubilee. It's unfortunate that both of you come from NASA, but still what is happening with Jubilee could also be happening, also happen in NASA, because the party nominations come up next month, and that is a huge problem for both sides of the political divide. Possible fallouts, a lot of things could happen. Jubilee appeared to have to have gotten a way out using the smart cards. Yes. Now these same smart cards now bringing confusion, and the headlines, if I could go to page 10 and 11 of the Standard. Confusion over use of Jubilee Party smart cards in counties. Jubilee in crisis over use of card in primaries. Now Tuju says that the party will soon carry out audits and stakeholder consultations over the matter. Now, when it comes to party primaries and who should take part in the party primaries, you don't want to make it open. It's not a matter of universal suffrage. Yeah, when it comes to party primaries, it should be members of that particular party. I know parties are supposed to submit their membership lists to the IEBC. I think the deadline is this week.
Yes, 27th.
27th. That should be Monday next week.
Yes.
And Jubilee just appeared to have actually cracked the problem by using the smart card. But it appears now the smart card is the problem. Do you think NASA has a better solution?
To a certain extent, you can use both the digital way and the manual way, and probably what Jubilee is facing is maybe the dissemination of that information to the counties and their leadership in the counties, because you can already see there's reshuffling even at the headquarters, and therefore that will of course now start making the county leadership of course also become a little bit fluid, and that flows down to the entire structure. And so even now the distribution of the electronic cards and then using them of course has come up as a hedge. So I am not an insider there, and of course we're just looking from the outside in and seeing the challenges of probably using that, and maybe just having that manual system to be used. Because now what they're saying,
touting the manual system, Cynthia.
Touting the manual system for party primaries, because now that's where members, when they were registering as members, their names came back to the party headquarters, and the party headquarters then submits to the IBC, and then to the Office of the Register of Political Parties, who generates the registers and gives it back to the parties to now conduct their party
primaries. But then again,
primaries.
you know the problems that come with the
what they're saying is they're going to be using both. They're going to use their registers and the... In certain counties they'll use the card, in certain counties they will not. And so now the members of Jubilee need to look out to know which counties are using digital cards and which ones are not.
And towards the end of last year, of course, the push was that we go digital, even in identifying voters for the election. But it appears even going digital could have its own downsides that now we are seeing it's not foolproof.
You see, one thing we must appreciate, and I think looking at things globally, is that Kenya we must appreciate in terms of growth and democracy. And coming from the region, from East Africa, and I can tell you Kenya is doing very well in terms of democracy, now shaping the politics of the country to be based on major parties, the Jubilee on one side and NASA. That's something to celebrate. Two, the difference between NASA and Jubilee is that Jubilee seems to be a one party, and NASA is a coalition of number of parties, and therefore things will be done differently.
So your headache could actually be bigger?
No, we will find that now at the party level, for example, when you come to NASA, each now affiliate party of NASA will do their own possible nomination, save for some places where there will be some sort of agreeing on how to do it. And therefore I can tell you it has done before that we never had problems in either Ford Kenya or ODM or Wiper, or even in this particular case NASA. And therefore the issue with the Jubilee, and of course introducing their digital stuff and so forth, is you never know who gets how many cards. And you know those are some of the issues, because depending on who you are closer to who in the power, then you get more cards and that kind of stuff. And those are some of the challenges with most of the political parties. And therefore I would say yes, depending on how they manage this could also be a challenge.
Yes, because I do understand even Wiper is facing quite a challenge, especially in Mombasa, and it's also a headline on that particular page. Awiti to announce way forward on Wiper ticket, and apparently there was a scheduled meeting last weekend that was supposed to come up with a candidate for the governor's race.
Yes,
between Awiti and Hassan Omar. That did not take place, and Awiti feels a bit not very comfortable with that. Are you saying probably they should go for consensus because the party branch chairman there has already taken sides?
No, actually the party constitution provides for that consensus. So if you don't agree again, you go to nomination process and so forth. And one thing I must tell you, in Wiper there's no problem. It's only that Wiper is growing in leaps and bounds. If you look at now the number of applicants who are coming to vie using Wiper tickets, we have so many, almost at all levels, MCAs, MPs and stuff. And therefore the case in Mombasa, where of course the Secretary General Awiti, and by the way Awiti is also the Treasurer General of the party, and therefore you'd expect there must be a lot of expectations on what is going to happen. And in one side of course you have the Secretary General, the other side we have the Treasurer General, and therefore how it will come out. And therefore, and our proposal was, and I can tell you this, was if they can agree to work together as a team, and I'm sure there's a team that is working around that to ensure that they really work together, because that would be in the interest of the party that they work together. If they don't agree, then obviously they'll go for free and fair nomination process like any other. So I don't see a big problem. So Awiti announcing that way forward, I can tell you Honorable Awiti is one of our key supporters, officials of the party. And therefore it will be also in his interest to remain within the party. Because again, when he goes to another party and stuff, it could be a challenge. But as far as I'm concerned, there's discussion still going on. There's a team that is trying to oversee some of these talks to ensure that there are no those kind of problems that are put in the paper. So I don't think it's a big problem.
So do you agree that sometimes it's better to avoid open party primaries and just go for consensus?
No, I think it is the way of democracy, and that's one thing that we're trying to develop even within the parties. And so it is important that we do have that place where people argue and people are able, let it play out, and let the people decide. Really, that's the root of democracy, where it's not boardroom decisions that are bringing up leaders, because the people do want to have a part in who is their leader, and party primaries are a key to bringing out that leadership. When you get that party ticket in stronghold, then your good is done. So it's important that the people are let to decide, and to let the people have that party primaries.
But it's also up to the party structures to ensure there's no fallout, and possibly
and
even give
therefore within the party
something.
there are structures, there are disciplinary committees, there's the National Election Board that has been even working with the IEBC, and so there are rules and regulations that have been laid down. It's incumbent upon candidates to be familiar with the rules and regulations of their party. I know in Ford, Kenya, we have our National Election Board that's been going around the counties and meeting with aspirants and making them familiar with what's available, and to work within the confines of those rules and regulations to see that there's a smooth running of elections. So party primaries are important.
But also there's the issue of direct nominations. And a case in point, because this could affect you directly, and we've had it on Citizen TV this morning on the news, that given what is happening in Nairobi, and Senator Mike Sonko is not sitting very well within Jubilee because of some things he has done. And people seem to suggest that he has a plan B. And that plan B is a direct nomination by Wiper Party for the governor's race in Machakos County, which you are also vying, and you're the Deputy Secretary General of Wiper. If your party goes ahead and gives Sonko the direct nomination, what happens to you?
I can tell you for free that Machakos County is a Wiper zone, and therefore as a Wiper it is expected that the next governor of Machakos County, which of course I expect to be myself, Peter Mafuki, will be a Wiper candidate. And therefore allowing so many, again, Democrats, for whoever wants to come on board, to come on board. And again, yes, there's a provision in our own constitution, the party, that yes, depending on number of parameters, yes, you may give a direct nomination. You may again go into consensus again nomination. So those are number of methods that are used in identifying the candidate.
You'd be okay with that if Sonko gets a direct nomination?
No, I've not said that. What I'm saying is this: if Sonko comes, first of all, we are talking of somebody in Jubilee, and therefore the first thing is for him or anyone to come to Wiper. We cannot talk of somebody who's not in Wiper, honestly. So let him come to Wiper. Once he comes to Wiper, we will see how many candidates by using the Wiper ticket, and based on that a decision will be made. And obviously, if there are more than 2, the only way is to go for a free and fair nomination process. And therefore, Machakos or Wiper can never be plan B for anybody. Machakos is a serious county, in fact the next largest county in terms of resources, next to Nairobi, in Kenya. Wiper is again one of the largest parties in this country. And for anyone to think that it's a plan B after failing in other options, far from the truth. And therefore, I'm telling you, we are ready, we are prepared. We know Machakos is a Wiper zone either way, and therefore we are not desperate to the extent that we are only expecting people who are going for plan B.
Yes. But yet we've seen your party doing that, like the case in point in Makueni, when they were trying to woo the governor to join Wiper. He was promised a direct nomination.
No, not at all. Let me tell you what happened. One again happening in the national politics, where the principals again trying to ensure they strengthen their strongholds. And therefore, Professor Kibula Kibwana, coming from Makueni, agreed and said, for the sake of unity in the Ukambani, we need to, he opted to come to Wiper. And I can tell you, he said he was ready to go for nomination process. And he submitted his papers to Wiper. And again, there was a candidate, another candidate who would again placed the papers for the same process. And he said he was ready to go for a nomination process. And therefore, it's not a direct nomination to anyone. However, what I've said, yes, that sometimes in some cases, there could be direct nomination because that is provided for in the party constitution, depending on so many other factors. But if in a place there are more than 2 candidates, there can never be a direct nomination.
Do you support, because it is provided for in party regulations, but do you support the issue of direct nominations for anyone?
Yes, why not? Why not? And as he says, if there's no one else there, then if you're unopposed.
Because
direct nominations, then by consensus, There is negotiated democracy in some places where you don't want to be too acrimonious, especially when you see that then you can sit at the table and negotiate. And of course, you have all your stakeholders, everybody comes onto the table with their people, they're looking at their interests and why certain people should be given the ticket. Then yes, by consensus, negotiated democracy is something that still works, and is something that helps.
And that's why we appreciate and saying that parties like Wiper are growing very fast and ensuring that we deliver the counties in that particular part of the country. And therefore Makueni, obviously coming from Lower Eastern, Kitui again, Machakos, because those are basic counties that of course Wiper is very strong. And you don't expect
going to be seeing that even in NASA, if you're going to be looking at in Nairobi or Mombasa or in other places, you're going to be seeing the parties coming together.
So Nairobi especially, it's going to be consensus,
negotiated, give and take, take the governor, take the senator, take the women rep.
And that is going. And for sure, I think it's very clear for Nairobi. It's more or less agreeing on how to go, and that's why you see there's no confusion in NASA on who the candidate will be. Unlike in Jubilee, where there's a lot of confusion, and therefore people are saying they are plan Bs. Machakos cannot be a plan B.
So Machakos cannot be a plan B.
Never.
Okay.
It's always a plan A.
Yes. Now the other big headline is on the back page of the Daily Nation. I don't think we'll have enough time to discuss this. Wamalwa and the PS clash over 62 billion shilling tender. Principal Secretary rejected his boss's plan to award a contract for a dam to Chinese company. Of course, this matter is already before Parliament, and they're discussing it. You can read that headline as well.
And that's the complete departure with NASA, because then government, public officers will not do business when you're given office, and that's the problem that we're seeing, where people have been given office and they start doing business with their office, and that's a problem with the Jubilee government.
And again, of course,
because Jubilee is not here to defend themselves.
Well, NASA has said that, and it is one of the pillars of NASA that public officers will not do business
in the
with their office.
And in the scorecard of good governance, and this is not whether Jubilee or CORD, in the scorecard of good governance in the region of East Africa, I tell you that we are not doing very good as a country, as Kenya, because it's clear everyone the issues of corruption. And when you read see countries, small countries like Rwanda, doing very well in matters of good governance. In fact, that is why if you see major projects like the SGR, the pipeline that was supposed to go to Lamu, then again it was diverted to Tanzania. Those are some of the things, and the countries that were participating said, no, we cannot actually participate in this because of the issues of corruption in the country. And therefore that is something that is that is a serious issue. It's not about parties, not about the politics here, but it's about taking matters of good governance seriously, particularly corruption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to politics before we wrap up our news review this morning. Parties want March 27th deadline for submission of members lists altered. We mentioned this deadline. It comes on Monday. And of course, this is huge for party primaries. Surely parties have had enough time. You're the Deputy Secretary General of WIPA. Should we even be discussing about extending the deadline for submitting party membership lists?
You see, what is happening here, I think, is the smaller parties, coalition, the smaller parties, who felt that the March 27th should not have been given in the first place by courts. They felt it should have been far much earlier, not later than 27. And therefore, I felt the reason why, again, it was given to 27 was to allow. You see, there are so many people wanting to see what direction and so forth.
Still moving.
Moving. And therefore it was only fair, especially for the major parties in this country, for people to give them enough time to make a decision on which party. So I think that is again is in order. But the smaller parties again felt, because you see again there's a reason for them to feel that, because you appreciate many may not be going towards that direction. But for the big parties, it's very important.
Compiling membership lists, submitting them. So there's a lot of work, administrative work.
You've already complied with this?
We're doing that right now this week. Of course, it's an extension to Monday. So we were already ready to submit but then this week now gives us an allowance to really polish the registers. Make sure that the people who had been registered in Jubilee out of their will then can go and just move. And so there's a lot of movement going on then. So this week gives us that time to polish up.
Finally, the other very interesting headline has to do with a poll released yesterday by Tifa Research, and has to do with counties. One of them is Machakos.
Yes.
Kiambu and Mombasa. You're hoping to run for the Machakos governor's race.
Yes.
But they say that in Machakos, Governor Alfred Mutua is a man to beat for that post.
I can tell you for free.
Despite WIPA being more popular in Machakos, because the poll also found that WIPA is still the most popular party in Machakos, but Governor Alfred Mutua, who left WIPA, is now in Maendeleo Chap, is still way ahead of all the other candidates, including yourself.
And that is why we are saying it's clear. If they are admitting that WIPA is far ahead and the most popular party, that is to tell you the next governor for Machakos will come from WIPA.
Really?
And this is what I'm saying. Again, if the current leadership of the county came on a promises of giving water, for example, and shower, and those things were not provided for to the people, and then based on that people are very happy and they give him 75%, that tells you there's a problem with this opinion poll, obviously, because when you go to Machakos, the basic issues that people in Machakos have is water. And that is what he promised. The people will give you water, will give you a shower. If you go to Machakos, you don't find water. And I can tell you for free.
Disputing these polls?
Obviously, far from the truth, they can never be
but
true.
You just accepted that they were right when they said WIPA is the most popular party.
But that is in common knowledge, because you know it, I know it, everyone knows that WIPA is a party in Machakos. And therefore, when you come and say so and so are this kind of person in terms of popularity, you ask yourself, what was the promise? Water. I can tell you, anyone, even yourself, you go and promise people Machakos water, you get the ticket. And therefore, when again you don't provide what you promised, I'm telling you they'll punish you for that. And therefore, by trying to use opinion polls to reverse the psychology and thinking of the people of Machakos, I'm telling you the real people who will give the real and the true picture are the voters. And wait and say this. And therefore, wait and see. I'm telling you for free, the next governor for Machakos is WIPA, and that is none other than Peter Mathuki.
Okay.
Seated.
Are you also going to dismiss
I won't dismiss it wholesomely, because polling is really a scientific process, and of course they do get whatever process that they use. Then there is some truth in what they say, but some of the pollsters have been used to kind of change perception. And of course, in game theory, you do understand that there's a lot of there's shiftings, because now they have seen that WIPA is the predominant party, most favorable, but then the candidate is not from WIPA, and therefore then the people will move, the people who are voting are in WIPA, and so his rating to be at the top then will change because of that. So I don't know how
pollsters are playing politics.
pollster
Even
to a certain
in
degree.
Mombasa, where they
Because
say
when
that,
it favors a candidate, then you accept it. When it doesn't favor you,
and that's
then
the
you
point. If I told this poll that said that Peter Mathuki was a top candidate and was leading in popularity in Machakos, you'd have readily accepted that.
No, you see, that would be possibly
It is
the truth
that
because I'm the deputy. Yes, and I'm telling you, I'm the deputy secretary of the party.
And therefore, the candidate for the party then will be the one who will be carrying the day.
Okay.
And many things are happening, and that's what I'm assuring you. That will be the case.
Well,
and therefore, that's why I'm saying the opinion polls that were done by TIFA, you're calling it TIFA. I don't think they know what is happening on the ground.
Well, I know if you contact them, they can send you the entire process that they use. They can send you the details of the polls, and probably can even use them. In your
Take this to the bank. People in Machakos need change, like anything.
Not polls.
Not polls. It's change. And that's what they're saying. They need serious change. And now.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it still forms a part of the headlines this morning, and the poll states party popularity does not always match the candidates. And so, like the case, for example, in Machakos, where Wiper and NASA are more popular than Maendeleo Chapchap, but the governor, who is the Maendeleo Chapchap party leader, according to the polls, is the most popular candidate for governor. In Kiambu, they say Governor William Kabogo is the most popular, and in Mombasa, Governor Hassan Joho is the most popular, way ahead of his rivals. His rivals, Suleiman
And so you're
Shabal
saying that
and
the
Hassan
incumbents are the ones who seem to be carrying the day.
And can I tell you something
of the structure
about some of these
organization?
opinion polls? The best time to do this is after party primaries. For now, before the party primaries, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Because there could be so many other candidates still interested to come on board, and they're not on board. So you are engaging against what?
Because even some of these individuals, if they are put to party primaries, they could actually lose out on
They
the
could
ticket.
lose. So it's very unfortunate for some of these pollsters.
Yes.
To be very careful because they want to
change perception.
Okay.
And
But
that
you
is very
can use
unfortunate.
it to work on upping your game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for news review this morning. A final word, Cynthia?
Let's get ready for party primaries between the 9th and the 26th. Of course, it's all systems go right now. We're cleaning up our membership register. It's very unfortunate that on Monday, Ford Kenya actually lost an aspirant for Komarok seat, Edison Natembe. And we just want to call upon the law enforcement authorities, agencies, the IG and whoever's involved to really look into this case and especially to secure the security of it. Was a shooting incident. That's very unfortunate, and so our hearts are out there. And of course, Ford Kenya is hurting because of that, but especially security for women, that's a challenge. And so we want to see that the law enforcement agencies up the security for aspirants, especially during this season.
Okay. Finally, Peter Mathuki.
Yeah, I would say that we want to tell Kenyans that NASA is very strong. NASA is there to hold together. We are aware as NASA that indeed what is driving us is the change that Kenyans are yearning for. It's not about anyone, and therefore we'll be together. And therefore, for those who assume and think that NASA is breaking, let them forget about it. We are there to hold. And therefore I want to assure and please hold, we are together. And of course, lastly, that tell you that indeed Machakos is Wiper, and the next governor for Machakos is none other than Peter Mathuki.
Okay, thank you so much, Bona Peter Mutuku Mathuki, Chief Whip of the East African Legislative Assembly, also Deputy Secretary General of the Wiper Party. He's also an aspirant for the Machakos governor seat. We also had Cynthia Mutera, governance analyst, helping us look at the headlines this morning, and that wraps it up for this edition of Power Breakfast. Remember, you will still continue enjoying music from Taraji Band, but from our Power Breakfast team, myself, Willis Baburu, and Joy Muthengi, it's good morning.